to the void, to the dark, to the fall. Crawl to the life you shouldn't know. You should never come this way to test the hands of fate. You don't belong here. Peel back the skin, close your eyes. Hell is born to the abyss, but be warned. You fear what you've become. My God, what have you done? You don't belong here. But it's all in the way you touch and you obey. Denial. But it's all in the way you touch and you obey. Denial.
Good day or evening to everyone out there in the decoding world. My name is Logan, and this is Decode Your Reality. And today I'm going to be breaking down and decoding The Slip to the Void. And the song playing in the background is from the great band Alter Bridge, off their Alter Bridge 3 album that came out October 8th, 2010. And the reason why I decided to decode this, folks, was because of fate. You know, I had no plan to decode this song, but, you know, I just decided to throw it on. It was in my iTunes library, the only Alter Bridge song I have in my iTunes library right now, and I decided to put it on the other day just to listen to it, and then I just got the urge to decode it, and I went into the lyrics, and then, you know, I went into the song and what it was about, and I was just blown away again, and here we are doing the decode on this. Folks, I have such a jam-packed, amazing presentation for you. You're going to want to put on some headphones, as I always suggest. You're going to want to, you know, immerse yourself in this presentation, get comfortable. And this is probably going to be almost an hour, if not more, maybe a little bit less. I'm just guessing. So, you know, you're in for the long haul on this. And again, as I always say, the time you spend investing in this presentation will be well worth the time you spend on investing in this presentation. It's going to open up your eyes to a lot of things because we're starting to make sense of what this world is that we all live in, what it's all about, and why we're here. You know, why we're here. And, you know, the void, we start out with that. What is the void? Slip to the void. You know, I have a great artist rendition, you know, the man going down to the light at the end of the tunnel. And, you know, folks, the question really is, what came first, the black or the white? Now, you know, I know a lot of people are like, oh, I'm a light worker. I'm gonna go back to the light. Well, okay, but is that what came first? Because, you know, if you just take the natural aspect of our world and just our births, and, you know, we're born into the womb, and there's no light in your mom's belly. It's completely black. There's no light in there. And then the only time you have light is when you pop out of the womb. When you come out through that womb, you let there be light, which is why I have a picture of this man walking to the entrance to the light at the end of the tunnel. So, you know, there is that philosophical question, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Which came first, the black or the white? And what is the void? What is it all about? What does it mean? We're going to get into that, folks. This one is going to really blow you away. I promise you. So here are the topics of conversation that we're going to be discussing in the zero position, which is what I'm doing now, the intro. Number 1, question everything. Number 2, the Gold Bridge. Number 3, Fox Creek. Number 4, 33 steps. Number 5, the Alice Bridge. Number 6, angels and demons. Number 7, duality. Number 8, the game of chess. Number 9, ants. Number 10, the fall of man. And of course, what did you see in the 11th position. I always like to hear your feedback. A lot of you have great decodes and you always add to the things that I miss or didn't add in or things I didn't even see, which is, we're strength in numbers. So here we go, folks. I want to start off by saying this is all about frequency. Being in tune, which is why I get a lot of people emailing me like, hey, Logan, how'd you get started? And, it's my destiny. I studied myself. I was naturally inclined to move towards numerology, astrology, personality types, all the things that I'm showing you, the cards, the medicine cards, the cards of illumination, all these things I've just gradually moved towards, and it felt like a natural move for me. And then I just fell in love with the mystical arts and everything and all about it. And then I realized I'm in tune with these things, which is how I'm discovering all these amazing things that are here to discover, and how some of you out there are discovering all these major things that have been there and in front of our faces this whole time. And of course, we just didn't see them, but now we're beginning to see them because the frequency, you're getting in tune with the frequency. And that's what this is all about. When you start to chase it, you become more in tune with it, and then your frequency gets on a different waveform, like the Schumann resonance, the natural heartbeat of the earth, frequency. And that's really what it's all about. It's delivering the messages to your brain through the frequencies, but you need to be in tune with them. And then you get to see through the bullshit veil that, the ones that don't want you to see through it have kind of trapped and limited you with your mindsets. And that can be a challenging thing. And so that leads to the first topic, question everything. Which, listen, most astrologers now, myself included, believe that we're in the age of Aquarius, which of course is the New World Order. And the age of Aquarius is I know thyself. So that's why you should be decoding who you are and why you're here and everything under the sun about you and everybody around you. And you should know all your immediate people that are in your life and who you are and all your cards and your numbers, everything. Because you question everything. Like, why is that? Why is this? So the reason why I started off with that topic is because it was all about this band and the great song Slip to the Void. And here are the two main guys in the band, Tremonti and Kennedy, Miles Kennedy. And, if you just follow along reading this album was described by the band as being very dark, heavy, and dynamic. And it was about a character who desperately struggled to find their place in a world steeped in doubt and emptiness. And that's where a lot of us are at in this world. We're doubting a lot of things that we're like, wait a minute, is that really what the truth is? And then Kennedy said that the album touches on the thoughts and emotions of someone who has come to question everything that was once regarded as an absolute truth, and that it is about the realization that everything you once believed in might not exist. That's a heavy note to think about. Because when your beliefs get shattered and you have to completely have a new paradigm come into your life. And that's really what it starts off with. This presentation is Alter Bridge and what the meaning of their, the name of the band, where it came from, all these things. Folks, it's going to really put a lot of things into perspective. This album came out October 8th, 2010. And when you go and look at the calendars, and here's one of the ways I decode is I love looking at the calendar, the solar lunar calendar, the Gregorian calendar, because the days have so much significance. Notice the album date came out October 8th. It's the 281st day of the year. That left 84 days that remain until the end of the year. So you can, decode all those layers, but I decided to subtract and what we had in between of the day it came out and how many days you had left. It's 197 days in between those two days on the calendar, and that's gold, folks. Gold has an atomic weight of 197. Its most abundant is 196, but it has a 197, and that's gold. And that's why, and I've been showing this. If you haven't seen my decode on Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd, and the pot of gold at the end of a rainbow, we're being mined for gold, harvested for gold, because we're fish. And Alter Bridge is no exception. And they do their fishing through music. And that's where the gold bridge comes into play. The gold bridge, because that's, where do they get their name from when you go and read about Alter Bridge and whatnot? And, here are the 4 members of Alter Bridge: Miles Kennedy, Mark Tremonti, Brian Marshall, Scott Phillips. That's what they go by professionally. And that's a total numerology of 170. And, the reason why I kept the gold here is because the 17 minus the 0 is 17, and that's once again golden fish. And folks, we're 2 lost souls swimming in a fishbowl. I did that with the Wish You Were Here decode. I know that some of you think it was about Syd Barrett, the Pink Floyd song, but there's other meanings besides what the artist thinks it means, because there's always the vantage points of us observing these lyrics and songs, what it means to us and what we see. And clearly, these guys are being mined for gold, are harvesting their music. And if you know how alchemy is, what it's all about esoterically, then you know exactly what these things are showing right here. So then we get into the Fox Creek, because it has everything to do with Alter Bridge and the band. And this right here is an aerial photograph of why they called it Alter Bridge. Of course, here is Alter Road. And this is from Mark Tremonti, the guitarist, who was a guitarist for Creed. And this is where he lived. He lived in Grosse Pointe, Michigan, which is right next to Detroit. And this is the entire scenario of why they are named Alter Bridge. And it has so much significance to this presentation. If you this is right off of what they are showing to the world here. They take their name from Mark Tremonti's childhood experiences growing up in Grosse Pointe Park. For many years, there has been a small bridge at the intersection of Alter Road and Riverside Boulevard. Let me go back and show you. Here's Riverside Boulevard, and here's Alter Road. And then this would be the bridge. There's a bridge right there. And then this is Fox Creek, and we're going to get into the Fox Creek. So it's Alter Road and Riverside Boulevard. It's where they intersect, and it goes north to south. That's the direction. If you go study Alter Road, it goes from north to south, and that's heaven and hell. Heaven is north or south, depending on your perspective, and then hell would be south or north. So it's north and south. It's up and down, those 2 nouns, those 2 ideas. And what does that have to do with this entire presentation at Alter Bridge? Think about it. The bridge that separates the 2. That's what this whole band and the song is all about. Slip to the Void and Alter Bridge. And so, the whole reason why they named it that was because as a child, the guitarist, Mark Tremonti, he was not allowed to go past that bridge because they felt that if he were to go into the city of Detroit, there was, it started to get into more crime and violence over that bridge into Detroit. So Grosse Pointe Park is where he lived. That's where his parents wanted him to stay. So the whole story of this, folks, is about separation and the bridge that separates. And in this case, because his parents thought it wasn't safe for him to cross over the bridge, it would represent the hellish version. It would represent hell in this analogy. And his Grosse Pointe Park would be heaven because his parents felt that it was safe there. So it's north to south. This road runs north to south, and then the story of why they named it Alter Bridge is because his parents thought that the north side was safe, which would be heaven, and then the south side, which would be in Detroit, would be hell. A really, really bad area. And when you take the numerology of these 2 folks, you see this is why the stories in our matrix, it's all fixed. I don't know how it is this way. I really don't. I don't have any answers to give to any one of you. It's just the way it is. It's written in the software. It's written in the script. And everything's just playing out its part. But notice it's a 303, which is a 33. And what's 33 all about? Well, it's linked to our DNA. And I'm going to be showing that with 33 steps, 33 vertebrae, the Christ, the crucifixion. It's ascension. And in this story, it's about the separation of the 2 points, the Altar Road and Riverside Boulevard, the bridge, the altar bridge, separating heaven from hell. And this is what the 33 is all about. Now, you may shrug this off and say, oh, Logan's kind of going off the deep end here. But I got so much more to show you. And just wait till I show you more of what this presentation is all about. It's going to blow you away. The Fox Creek is really what the bridge went over, which is what the bridge went over, the separating point. So the creek has everything to do with this presentation as well, and it's the Fox. And Fox Creek, what is Fox? It's 666 because F is 6, O is 15, 1 plus 5 is 6, and X is 24, 2 plus 4 is 6. So we know, esoterically, and most of you know Fox, Fox News, and it's the box, 666. That's the box we live in. The hellish region. It's Earth, 666. And this creek is what separated the area of safe passages, which his parents would call heaven, and then Detroit, which was on the other side of the bridge, would be hell. And we're talking 666. Now stick with me, folks. This is going to get really good. When you look at it from the Chaldean, Fox Creek has a total numerology of 37, which of course is tied to rubidium and the electric eye. But that, the main meanings of this, and again, because it comes down to interpretation and really seeing things and being in tune with these things. Fox is a 20, Creek is a 17, 20 and 17. And then, of course, you bring the tarot into this because I want to get a visual of what these things mean in numerology. All these are connected. The numerology is connected to the tarot, and those are connected to the elements of the periodic table. They give us different layers to observe things from. Fox Creek is a 20 and a 17. And remember, we're talking about heaven and hell here. The separation of where his parents felt that he was safe and where he wasn't safe, and he wasn't allowed to go over the bridge, which was Fox Creek. And, it's all about the judgment of the star. You see, folks, remember, we are fish. I'm going to go back here and I'm going to show you this. We're fish living in the fish bowl. We live in an aquarium. We're being mined for gold. And the star card is the 17th card, matching the numerology of the word fish and gold. Aleister Crowley said, we're all stars. Absolutely. Rock star, movie star. We're all stars. You're a star. You just need to know exactly what your power is. Again, some of you don't know because you don't study yourself. I don't know why, but anyway, we're the stars. And that's really what this meaning is. It's the judgment of the star. Do we get judged? And then, remember, the judgment card, folks, the 20th card is tied to the 20th element called calcium. Now, the majority of our body, solid-wise anyway, is made of calcium. Our bones are made up of calcium, which if you study theology, it's the clay. If you study King Nebuchadnezzar and the dream that Daniel was able to decipher or decode, it was the clay. The feet were made of clay. The statue, the head was gold. The feet were clay. Calcium. We get judged through the calcium, through our bones. And this story here is about the judgment of the star. We're the star, which is chlorine, which, chlorine is 17, the star card 17. How many colors in the rainbow? 7. 17's the star card. It's through the chlorine. So that's what this meaning is right here. In relation to the story of where Alter Bridge got their name. And of course, this song is about slip to the void. What's the void? It's coming down the spiral, coming down the hole, down into the hellish region called Earth. Even the pi expression of the 37, I've shown this so many times, it occupies two spaces, 46 and 47, which is the tree of life and tree of knowledge. These are the original spellings in Hebrew taken from the Torah. If you fancy this kind of stuff, it's a story. Remember, I'm not saying this is true. I'm just showing you the connections. But that's 46 and 47. And it's, the father and sons, or father and son. These two are definitely in bed together, without a shadow of a doubt. But this Fox Creek, which separated the bridge, the altar bridge, is tied to the tree of life and tree of knowledge. And the tree of knowledge supposedly is where we got separated from heaven. We got thrown out of the garden and we got cast down because we ate the forbidden fruit, which is the tree of knowledge, which would represent hell. And the tree of life would represent heaven. That's how I see it anyway. Or maybe it's the reversal. Maybe it's the knowledge that goes to heaven and the tree of life recycles us back into the world. Because that means life. Get back into the matrix again. So then we do get into the 33 steps because it's all about the altar bridge. Remember, folks, slip to the void. You don't belong here. Remember that song at the beginning of the song? You don't belong here. That's what he's singing. You don't belong here. And the 33 steps is really as an integral part of this. And I showed this, I put this out on social media. Told you I'd be including this in the presentation. And, notice that this is what the 33 means. It's our chromosomes. 33 in the string of pi is found at the 24th and 25th decimal digit, which of course leads to, if you follow Santos Bonacci's great work, my friend Santo, he's a gem because he's shown people you got to go up and then you cross over and get crucified. And that's where Golgotha comes in. I think Golgotha is 33. But this is where the ascension process in the pineal gland and the crown and it leads to the 67. Pineal is 6 and the crown is 7. That's 67 or 76. That's linked to the Nephilim, and we're going to get into the fallen angels because they have everything to do with this and the slip to the void. You don't belong here? Get out of here. Leave. Are we even really supposed to even be here? Living out our lives. Do we choose to come here to help save the world? But anyway, here are our chromosomes. Masculine, feminine. 24 and 25, X and Y. And that's linked to the 33. Now you know why the 33 is so important. For some of you, this is probably one of the greatest things you've ever learned in the world of the esoteric. And it all has to do with pi. Now, I'm not saying that to brag, folks. I'm really not. I'm just discovering this stuff and I'm sharing it with all of you. This stuff was already here. Many other people know about this. I just happen to discover it, and now I'm sharing it with all of you. But this is what it means. Pi means infinite potential, which is what Earth is, which is our chromosomes, which, of course, again, we're talking altar bridge, the separation point between heaven and hell. And here's the album itself, folks. Notice that it's called ABIII, which is 33. Which goes back to the 33 steps, the chromosomes. And of course, this album it was very dark. Question everything. Things are not what they seem. And we're learning all these things now. So now we get into the Alice Bridge. The Alice Bridge, Alice in Wonderland, and I've been showing this through my Alice in Wonderland decode. Some of you have really taken off with this and shown a lot of other great pieces to add to this, which I'm very grateful for. In the English, Altar Bridge 3 or ABIII is a 30. It's a 30, and that's tied to Alice. Remember, this song, Slip to the Void. You don't belong here. Going down the hole, down the rabbit hole after the rabbit. In the underworld. you know? And Miles Kennedy, the singer of the song, says, "You don't belong here. You lost love." It's all about not using love anymore. When you get down here, you don't belong here. What is he talking about? Going down that hole. And, you know, the album lengths, they always really have something to say. And again, I've shown so many albums now with the length of the albums and how they're tied to major significant things. There's just no way that these producers could just sit down and really be in cahoots with the artists to make sure the songs are exactly coming out to these, you know, times, because it would be just too much work. So just man's being used to get these albums out. Make no mistake about it. And, you know, the length of this album is 65 minutes and 39 seconds. And, you know, that's the two elements, terbium and yttrium. And I mean, there's the Christ right there, tied to the Christ, tied to time travel, 88 keys on a piano, 88 constellations. But, you know, when you do the alchemy of these two is really where it starts to show itself. Terbium and yttrium added together is a total of 247.831, and we know 247 is the yin-yang. It's the element curium. It's the element curium. And the yin-yang is our DNA, the double helix. That's why I have the double helix in the background right here. And, you know, this is the bladder of the fish. That's why the fish was so important in the theology aspect. The bladder of the fish. This is the womb, the vesica piscis, all this stuff. And, you know, what's really fascinating about this, when you go further, is the melting point of curium. Now, I know if you're not really into the elements, you know, you may shrug this off, but folks, if you're into the elements and you realize all of these are clues telling us what's really going on in our matrix reality, in our world, both matrix and cosmic natural law. And curium's melting point, going from a solid to a liquid, you know, transformation or transmutation. Folks, if we came from the realms of the spiritual and then we descended down the fall of man into physical bodies, that is transformation or transmutation. That would be the melting points, the boiling points. And some of these elements, you know, they go from a solid to a liquid to a gas, which are natural states. And of course, esoterically, when we look at it, we can kind of get a really good glimpse of perhaps just what this means. And notice that the melting point of curium is 1618 degrees Kelvin. Kelvin is just another way to observe temperatures. Celsius, Fahrenheit, Kelvin. And look at where the 1618 appears in the string of pi, 6004. And if you've been paying attention to this research, what is 64? Well, it's our DNA, which is why I have a picture of the double helix behind here. 64 squares in a chessboard, 64 numbers in the I Ching. 64 is the pineal gland, the third eye, and our heart chakra. 6 and 4. We fall in love with what we see. 64. And that's tied to our DNA, folks. And this album is tied to the DNA. And so is there truth to this album based upon what I'm showing here? Well, I believe so. I believe it's telling the story. And then it gets into a really heavy topic, the angels and demons. And, you know, do they really exist? Well, you know, listen, I've been following a group of individuals which I have respect for. I just don't really dive into what they dive into. But, you know, they really get into the demons and conjuring and doing seances and, you know, and getting power from these demons. Just remember what demon means. Demon, it's below man. And they'll give you power if you ask for it. So I believe they exist. I've studied it quite a bit. And if demons exist, that means angels have to exist. Would make sense. And, you know, this was in the song Slip to the Void, the abyss. And the abyss is maybe the void that we come down into. Or down through the light to the tunnel. born into this world and born into the abyss. Abyss is a 10. That's the binary number itself. And, it's tied to the 10th card in the in the tarot called the Wheel of Fortune. So when you're born into this world, folks, you're born into the abyss and you're going to spin the wheel. And the symbology on this obviously is blue and red. Again, Santos Bonacci's great work, the blue shift, red shift. That's why cop cars have the blue and red. It's why the United States flag has the blue and red. The France flag has the blue and red. The blue and red is really important. And, here are the 4 fixed signs in astrology. And then the X, it's the 10th card. The X is our chromosomes. And we spin the wheel. And, of course, here's the devil down at the bottom. The hellish regions. And then you want to get back up here. And then, the Yod-Heh Vah-Heh is on this wheel. The Rider-Waite deck, the tarot deck, it's on this wheel. And it says tarot, and it has the Yod-Heh Vah-Heh on there. So is that what's running this matrix reality based upon what I'm showing here through the esoteric and whatnot? The tetragrammaton, the box that we live in. Tetra meaning 4. North, south, east, and west. The 4 corners of the earth. The abyss. And that's what it's all about. It's all about the angels and demons. I believe they exist abso-friggin-lutely. And maybe it's these entities that are running our lives. And when we start to wake up and we take the veil out from our third eye and we see through that, maybe then we get transformed into something else, and then maybe an angel or a demon, depending on our level. Some people are so lost, I can never imagine them even being associated with any angels in that perspective, in that story of what angels and demons are. Of course, angels being what we perceive as good and demons being perceived as what we call bad. Destructive, constructive. Hot, cold. And, it's really all about your choice. Even if we're being used and even if the voice in the back of your head is not allowing you to control anything, because there's no way to prove that, folks. That's the tough part is, see, I can say that you're not in control of the voice in the back of your head, and I can't prove that. But in the same mannerism, there's no way for you to prove that you're in control of the voice in the back of your head. Absolutely no way to do it. So it's really a stalemate. But nonetheless, these angels and demons, I believe, exist. I don't know. What do you believe? And, you'll notice that the story goes into the fallen ones. I mean, it's not only the Bible, but it's the book of Enoch, and there's a lot of esoteric books that talk about the fallen ones. And I believe we're descendants of these fallen ones. If you trace back your lineages, it has to go back to some origin of where it all started from. And I believe we're the descendants of this story. And you notice that the word fallen is a 25. That is a match of the word demon. Fallen angel, demon. And then, the star is born is the 17, which is the angel. It's kind of interesting when you look at it this way. And then together there are 42. And that's tied to this element right here, molybdenum, which is the element pertaining to the word lead. And we're talking about lead to gold. So, are there angels in this world, down here in this reality, that help us out? Or, something to that fashion. And then at the same time, I already know that demons are real because I got people that I'm involved with, some of these groups that I just observe from, and they're doing all these conjuring and saying they get power from these entities. So I know they exist. I believe that anyway. And I think it's pretty crystal clear now when you look out into the world, how easy it is to fall and get stuck in what's called Maya, which is, this world, the never-ending kaleidoscope of infinite potential. And, you can easily get stuck in really being egotistical and service completely to self, not helping the world, not really having any love in your life. A lot of people go around in their lives with no love and they're heartless. We see a lot of the government officials and politics, and they're just heartless. They don't care about you. So what are they paying tribute to? What's controlling them? When you look at the 17, it's linked to the word earth, which it's an anagram of heart because it has the same exact letters. Heart is in there. Earth, heart. And that's a 17, which is tied to the word angel. Constructive. Destructive. And we are all the fallen ones, folks. Make no mistake about it. We are fallen. That makes the most sense to me. And, we are the stars on the earth. We're all stars. So then, you get into the other layers to observe it from. And remember, we talked about Fox Creek, which is where Alter Bridge kind of got their name from, which is where this song Slip to the Void and now this presentation I'm doing. Notice, Fallen is a 25. That is linked to the Fox card in the medicine deck, the 52 cards that use animals for their symbology. Folks, these people that created this deck, they're different than the people that created this system. Yet here we are connecting the dots. And, I showed this with the Fox Creek. There's the 666, the box that we live in. The number of the beast, the fallen, are linked to the fox, which is linked to the 666. I mean, if you go read about the Fox card, oh man, the description of it, it's all about being crafty and sneaky. It's really interesting. I'm going to leave the description of the Fox card in this video presentation, in the descriptions. You can click on it and go read it at your own leisure. So then you get into the elements of the periodic table. Talking about angels and demons, we're talking about the fallen, slip to the void. Fallen is 25. That's linked to this element right here, manganese. Just a small subtlety, what broadcasting station in the 1988 movie They Live? Do you remember what news station it was? It was station 54. And the element manganese on the Royal Society of Chemistry, they show this little icon right here. It's a cow with a magnet over it. And you see, folks, I believe we're cattle. We're being rounded up as cattle and being used for energetic food. What are cows used for? Food. Is it so far-fetched to believe that humans are being used for food too? And the discovery date of manganese, there's that 174. Those of you that follow this research, that's tied to Lucifer. Lucifer is known as the fallen angel. And this representation right here is the magnet pulling up the cow. Is this what it's all about for us, folks? Being snatched from this earthly realm because we're linked to the fallen angels or the fallen ones or the watchmen, however you perceive it. We had to start somewhere. So then we get into duality. And you can't have duality without having this earth that we live. It's all part of this construct. Some of you think it's evil. Well, okay, but how are you to prove that? Just because things are linked to something doesn't mean it's evil. You're calling it evil. Just look at things as just energy and then observe them as, are they constructive or destructive, which of course is good or bad. But this duality, folks, is all tied to our DNA. Our DNA is called a double helix. Duality. So like it or not, you're stuck down here in this duality. It is duality. Hot and cold, up, down, black and white. It's duality. And, our bones are made of calcium. Duality is a 20. Calcium is the 20th element. The 20th card in the tarot deck is the judgment card. Are we being judged based upon our performance here in this matrix reality? Notice the subtleties. Duality is a 7-letter word. 7 letters, 1 word. 71 is linked to the 20th prime number. And of course, again, following the research I've been doing, what is 71 tied to? Lutetium, Lucy, Lucifer. Manly P. Hall says Lucifer's numbers are 741. Doesn't have to be in that order. I think it's crystal clear what this means. And we were talking about fallen angels. Lucifer's known as the fallen angel. Even the show on Netflix, his license plate says fallen one. Going off that story. So then you go into the string of pi and, the number 20, duality, which is what we are all about, it appears at the 53rd decimal digit, and that's iodine. That's you, folks. See, that's like saying, I am this, or I am that, or I'm wonderful, or I know what I'm talking about, or I'm going to go there. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I. It's linked to your duality, your ego and your spirit. You got both of those. Jesus and Lucifer. Those are the two pieces that make up our double helix in our DNA. I mean, even in the brain, you have the dorsal root and the ventral root. That equals 46. That's a match of Jesus, Lucifer. That's pretty crystal clear when you take the blindfolds off and you can start to see things from different layers. But nonetheless, the 20, it starts at the 53rd position, but it also occupies the 54, which is why I have the 107 there. 53 plus 54 is going to give you 107. And 107, of course, is once again tied to that 71 right here, the duality. And then you go back to here and you'll see it right there. The 71 is the 20th prime number. You just got to drop the zero. It's there. It's still expressing itself. It's just a higher form because it has the zero as infinite potential. And that's where numerology comes in. You got to be a numerologist to really make sense of this. Because if you're just connecting numbers to words, you're going to get lost and you're going to get stuck. And I see it so many times. People just connecting numerology and they think I got to figure it out. Yeah, this is what it means. And they're blasting out, it's Masonic and it's Jesuit, and they don't even know what they're talking about. Well, anyway, that's for a different story. That's just my opinion, by the way. You may not agree with that, because maybe you're one of those people. And maybe you're going to give me a thumbs down on my video because I just said that. I really don't care. Not looking for a perfect score. I'm looking for truth. Anyway, this is tied to the elements palladium and silver. Palladium is 46. Silver is 47. And I showed that the tree of life is 46. The tree of knowledge is 47. That is our duality, folks. So the number 20 tied to the 107, tied to the tree of life and tree of knowledge. It is our duality. Can't leave one without the other. So the story in theology has some mishaps in it because it says, don't focus on the tree of knowledge. That's going to kill you. You're going to lose your life. Well, it's part of our lives. Clearly showing it with the numbers that are tangible and real. I mean, I could just see if I was just showing it in the pie, but then you add them up and then you look at numerology, then you look at the elements. Folks, it just becomes clear that a lot of the stuff we were told is all bullshit. It's not truth. This is how you're going to find your truth, is not taking my word for it. I'm just showing you my opinions and truths. I'm not forcing this down your throat. I'm very stern and rigid in my beliefs, but I'm not certainly going to tell you that you have to believe what I'm showing you. It's up to you. I always say what did you see? It's up to you what you want to believe. I'm not here to force this upon anybody. You're either going to see it or you're not. There's not just one way to the path of enlightenment, by the way. That I can tell you. Then you get into the game of chess, and that's what we're playing. Black and white, duality. 64 squares on a chessboard leading to our DNA. 64 possible codons in our DNA. Tied to the double helix, tied to duality. I mean, duality, it means two. I mean, here it is, duality, two. There's the two right there. See how much merit this has? And of course, the subtleties, 7 colors in a rainbow. We're light beings, slowed down into duality. Tree of life, tree of knowledge. Playing the game of chess. Then we get into the Nephilim, the fallen ones. Talked about in theology. Is there really some truth to these characters? I believe so. I mean, they found skeleton remains of large, giant people. I mean, there's got to be something to this story. Notice that Nephilim is a 32 in the Chaldean. In the Hebrew, it's 76. But notice that black and white is 32. Black and white is 32. Chess, Nephilim, duality. Folks, this is what I believe we're descendants of. What about you? And then you get in, and I showed this in many examples of my older work, which some of it's kind of getting outdated now, but the chessboard, it's Jesus and Lucifer. And Jesus being an 18 in this example here, because there are many examples. Jesus and Lucifer equals 74 if you want to use the English. Lucifer is 32 in the septenary, Jesus is 27. So, I mean, Lucifer 32, there it is. If you're going to if you fancy the septenary, you just got to look, connect them. But I like to just use one, as most of you know, 1 or 2, because it makes it more challenging, but it gets it more defined. Jesus is an 18, Lucifer is a 28. The only thing that separates them is the 1 and the 2. They both share the number 8. And when you divide those two, because they're opposing forces, you get the number 0.64. There's 64 squares on the chessboard. And, here are the 2 elements that make up these 2 characters using this example. Jesus is argon, part of the Ark of the Covenant, AR. And then Lucifer's nickel, old Saint Nick. Nickel was called devil's copper. Kind of pretty clear. And both their alchemologies, Jesus is 38, Lucifer is 58 with their alchemology. Argon does have an atomic weight of 38. So these completely have merit when it comes to their names and numerology and alchemology. And they're their opposing forces on the chessboard, playing against one another. Good cop, bad cop. Good and evil. Good and evil. Or what we call it as good and evil. And now we get into the noun ants. The topic number 9, ants. What do ants have to do with this presentation? What does it have to do with Alter Bridge and Slip to the Void? And remember, folks, the bridge. Remember the bridge. The separation point. His mom didn't want him to go past that bridge into hell because it was a bad neighborhood. Hell. Stay in the good neighborhood, son. What do ants have to do with this? Well, folks, ants, as a kid, it's crazy because as a kid, I still am, I was fascinated by ants. Now I know why. Because it's led me to now what I'm doing in this presentation, and all of this stuff is part of my life, part of my decode. And we're all tied to these ants. They're magnificent insects, but yet they're tied to the fallen angels, the Nephilim. The Nephilim is 32. And the 32nd card in the medicine card deck is the ant card. Have you ever studied these before? Unbelievable what they can do. And you could say we're like ants. Because if there were giants on the earth, we would be ants. Everything's all about perspective. And when you go read about the ant, I'm going to leave that in the description below as well, the ant card. Unbelievable when you read it. But it says that right here is the ant, right here. Here's the ant. And I'm going to leave this so you can click on it and read it at your own leisure. But the ants can carry a leaf over hundreds of miles just to get back to the anthill. Can you imagine that? They're patient. They're part of the group mind. They work for the queen. and the colony. Self-sacrifice. Strong. When you read the description on this, and you start to kind of get in your mind of the Nephilim and us as human beings, or the Nephilim are supposed to be, giants. They're supposed to be strong and big, like David and Goliath. Goliath was 9 foot 6 inches tall, or 6'9", one of those. But here is from that description. Ant is a build. This is why, again, I say, folks, that man's being used, because there's no way. Wait till I show this. Hold on a minute. Hold that thought. Ant is a builder, like a beaver. Is aggressive like badger. These are all cards in the medicine card deck. Here they are. Has stamina like the elk, scrutiny like the mouse, and giveaway like the turkey. That's the ant. So when you add up 32 plus 22 plus 29 plus 3 plus 20 plus 31, you're going to get the number 137, which is the 33rd prime number. Which is why I have the crucifix. This has everything to do with the bridge and slipping to the void down to the hellish regions. And Miles Kennedy said, you don't belong here. Who's you? Is it us? Is it talking about the fallen angels and the Nephilim being the ants? You don't belong here. And it's tied to the crucifixion, going back up. But are we part of this battery? We can't leave that part out. Are we being recycled back in? And being trapped here. A lot of people believe that we're trapped in this prison planet. So then we get into pi, folks. You want to talk about some sinks. We're talking about the fallen angels being the ants in this case. Very powerful insects. And in the string of pi, here it is, the number 32. It occupies 2 digits, but it starts at the 15th decimal digit. And of course, 32 starts with the number 3, which is pi. Pi is 3.1, but it's 3. The masculine side is 3. The trinity, 3. The triangle, pyramid. But 15 and 16 is 31. That's tied to the element gallium. 31 is also pi. Pi is 3.1. 15 and 16 is 3.1. We're on the infinite potential of pi. Earth, it's called Earth. But notice it starts at the 15th decimal digit. That's tied to the element phosphorus. And the Greeks call Lucifer phosphorus. Lightbringer. And it's the 15th element. And that's the devil card in the tarot. How about that? That the Nephilim, in this example of the ants, and in the string of pi, it appears at the 15th and 16th decimal digit, but it starts at the 15th, which is phosphorus, which is tied to Lucifer, which is tied to the devil card, tied to the fallen angels. How about that? So you can clearly see, folks, when you tie all these together, it strengthens the story. And remember, this is a story, if you know what story means. And of course, some of you already know that, what is that 30? That's tied to Alice and the rabbit card. And we're talking about fallen angels, right? Well, they fell down the rabbit hole into hell, which is where we're at. Which is where we're at. And then if you take 32 digits into the string of pi, past the 3 point, here it is, 3.1415, all the 32 digits. This is another way you can decode reality, folks, is finding out how many digits there are, tied to the numerology of Nephilim, 32. So 32 digits in, past the 3 point, it adds up to the number 152. And the element that's tied to the 152 is the 64th element, gadolinium, which is tied to our DNA. 64 possible codons in our DNA, 64 squares on a chessboard, which is why I showed the chessboard, tied to our duality, tied to the Nephilim. We're descendants of something. We're descendants of something, folks. Make no mistake about it. So then we get into the last topic that I have, and then I'm going to ask you what you saw. And we're going to finish this presentation up, but this is a big topic. The fall of man. Did we have a falling? Why are we here? Why are you here? So I made this graphic, and I was going to do the perfect circle decoded. I'm probably still going to do it, and I've taken bits and pieces of it. I created this. See, folks, the 12 hours on a clock, and then, the 13's right in the middle with it. This is the astrology wheel, of course, right here. And it's all related to the fall of man. And this is where Alice comes in. Alice goes down after the white rabbit, holding the clock, which is, of course, an indication of time. You're going to run out of time eventually. Everything does. And, of course, this is the Easter bunny, which is celebrated in springtime. And, the yin-yang symbol fits right in here. And here is, I just used the rabbits for the little holes. But here is the black rabbit, indicating springtime, which would be Aries, the ram, which would be led to the Christ. It would have to be. Because, see, when you look at the yin-yang on a perfect circle with the numbers, this has to be springtime right here. Because it's white. It's white. And then the darkness comes in right here, which indicates the fall. This is where the fall of man comes in, right here, the fall, which is what we're in right now. Today's November 1st. We're in the fall time. The fall of man and the fall of the leaves off the trees. Everything's dying. It's cyclical, but it's esoteric as well. And, here is the four worlds. See, I believe there's some merit to the four worlds. If you study Kabbalah, there's the four worlds, the layers of that. And these could represent the, red, orange, yellow, and green, the heart chakra. We got to go up these four worlds. And we descended down to the lower regions, and we start off in the number one position. We got to work our way back up. But this is the fall of man. And here is the 1 and the 7. Right here is the colors in the rainbow, 1 and 7. And if you've studied my decode on the Boaz and Yachin, the two pillars, if you haven't seen that, please do watch that one. Because I showed clearly that if you study the Masonic Arch is 1 through 7, showing the first 7 zodiac signs, which would be Aries through Libra. And then you'd have the 5 remaining, Scorpio through Pisces. Because this is wintertime, Capricorn. And the opposite of Capricorn is Cancer, which is the 2 tropics. And the equator's in the middle, balancing everything out. And that would be the 13th zodiac sign, Ophiuchus, because he is the bearer of the serpent, the dragon. There's the wave right there. This is the wave. You see the wave right there? There's the wave. The sine wave, where the dollar bill came from. And Ophiuchus, number 13, sits right in the middle. And the fall of man is right here. It's where it gets cold. See, because we start off here and we spring into action. Easter bunny. Fertility. Things start to grow. And then we descend down and we get to the fullest expansion of summer. Start to take our clothes off, go outside, get crazy, get wild. And then we start to get to the fall of man and we contract. That's all nature is. It's expansion and contraction. Expansion, contraction. But the fall of man happens around this position right there. And that's why in the movie The Matrix, Neo was told to follow the white rabbit. I wonder if that's good advice. I wonder if that's good advice. And if you're really paying attention, which one would be the sun, which one would be the moon? Clearly, this would be the moon, and this would be the sun. Son of man. Jesus is Aries, the ram. The 2 horns, the ram. springing into action. The black bunny. And then you'd have Lucifer being the white rabbit. That's how I see it anyway. Because he's tied to the fall of man. That story. The fallen ones. The fall of man. And then they land into the perfect circle called Earth. And the measurement of the perfect circle. See, the Gregorian calendar being 365 days, I think it has merit, of course, because it's in the matrix. But I think it started off with 360 degrees, and it's, through the decay of our world, it's shifted and it's changed. Clearly, the 364-day calendar is the solar lunar year, which are tied to the cards of illumination. 52 cards, 52 weeks. But the perfect circle, notice it's a 52. And what's fascinating about this is that it's this element right here, tellurium. And tellurium is derived from the Latin name tellus, and it means earth. This is the actual symbol or icon that the Royal Society of Chemistry chose to put in cahoots with this 52nd element. And we're talking about the perfect circle. Now, whether or not you believe it's a sphere, or it's flat, or it's concave, it doesn't matter. I got off that a while ago because it just leads to arguments. And it's not going to change my life, whether it's either one of those three. But I know it's a circle. I know it's a sphere. And that's what a compass is all about. Notice, even the word earth, which is where the fallen ones are, where the fallen ones is a 52. We're on the earth. And even the 52nd card in the deck is the King Spades card, which is the king of the earth. That's how much merit that has. And, the earth is the 17. We're the light beings, right? Because we have 7 colors in the rainbow. And there we are. We're the fish. Fish equals 17, just like the word gold. And we're being mined for gold on the earth, which is a 17. I think it's pretty crystal clear how all of these are connected to the fallen ones living on the perfect circle. And, again, this is where Neo was told to follow the white rabbit. Because you see, and I've shown this, here's another example. Alice fell down the hole. She's a 30. After the rabbit, he's a 30 in the cards. And when you go into the string of pi, the 30 appears at the 64th decimal digit of pi, which is linked to our DNA. 64th element, the GD element, the God element. And gadolinium has a few atomic weights. Let me zoom in so you can see that one. One of them is 153. And if you study theology and you fancy that, how many fish did they catch when Peter threw the nets over the side of the boat? 153. Well, no kidding, because you see, this is our DNA. It's our duality. It's our double helix, which is why the born-again Christians, they have a fish as their symbol. Because what was Jesus? A fisher of men. And Peter is the upside-down cross. And he's tied directly to Jesus. He's tied to us. We're tied to the Vatican. All of us. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes over in that place. They know the story. But following the white rabbit, is that a good idea? You go back up to this example. Is following the white rabbit a good idea? I don't know. Not sure. Leads to the fall of man. So would that put us back in the box, or does it not matter? Because if you watch my Christ battery decode, it doesn't matter. It wouldn't matter because we're batteries charging the battery. So, the fall of man, it gets really interesting because it leads to pi, which I know this as part of my destiny. My last name's Piet, which there's no coincidences there, which is why I use pi. And, the fall, through alchemology, fall is a 4-letter word. You go for the subtleties, 4 letters, 1 word. You go back up to right here, and here are the 4 worlds. This is the rendition I believe to be the most accurate. to this story. And so fall, and it's a 15, which is funny because it's the devil card, tied to the phosphorus, tied to the nephilim. And, the alchemology of fall is oxygen, hydrogen, lithium, lithium. And when you do the alchemology of it, and you add it up in the trusty calculator, look at what you get. You get pi, folks. 31 is pi. I mean, I know we are so used to saying pi, and I use it too because this is how people relate to it, 3.14. But pi to me is not 3, it's 3.1, because you see the most balanced of pi is not 3.14. It would be top heavy to the right. It would be 3.1. 3.1 is pi, which is actually tied to this element right there and this element. It's these two elements, and it's in the fall. So we fall down into this circle called Earth. And again, I'm not going to debate about whether it's flat or round or concave. I don't give a shit what it is. Doesn't matter to me. I'm going to make that perfectly clear to all of you. I don't care. I just know it's a circle. But it's pi. We fall down into pi, which is infinite potential. Even fall through the other two, these two ciphers, which I don't even use usually the full reduction, but look at it. Fall is a 31 in the English, which is a match to the alchemology of fall in the Chaldean. Fall is a 13 in the Pythagorean, which is a mirror of the 31. So I know this has a massive amount of merit, because all three of these lead to that 31, which is pi. All of them. And then, you get into the goldfish, because we're just two lost souls swimming in a fishbowl. When you say 31, which is pi, one way to say it, it's a 34. Notice it's a 17, 17. 30 is a 17, which remember, 30 is tied to the 113. 30 is tied to the fall of man. 30 is tied to the Nephilim. 30 is tied to phosphorus, tied to the devil card. They're both 17. And that's tied to the same as goldfish. Gold is 17, fish is 17. Gold. We're being mined for gold, harvested for gold. And we are in the sea of space. Even though we don't breathe water like a fish does, we breathe air, oxygen. It has precipitation in it. It has water in it. And, again, fall is 31. Fall is 13, the mirror of the 31. And even 13 is 31. Which is why 13 is such a powerful number. And again, it's in the middle of the zodiac's wheel, your astrological chart. In the very dead center, that's the number 13. So what about that 34? Tied to the 31. Tied to the fall of man. It's tied to the grouse card in the medicine card deck. Now, maybe this is the first time you've ever seen this card. Like, what does the grouse have anything to... Why is that? What does that got to... Again, as fate would have it, these people who created these cards, you think they were just tinkering around with all these numerology outputs? You realize how much you'd have to be into it? Like, you'd have to sit down and really... I don't think it's possible to create a card deck off the numerology of all these different words. Not possible. So there's only one logical explanation, folks, and that is man is being used like a puppet on strings. The grouse is the card of the sacred spiral. The grouse card is. And I'm going to leave the description of this card in the links below this video, so you can read about that as well. So it's tied to the sacred spiral, which is this rendition right here, and this would be the fall of man. The lightning bolt, the fall of man, the flash of creation, the sacred spiral. And then, you get into that sacred spiral and, you start reading about it. This is a great little piece. It's one of the oldest symbols known to man. You see it all over ancient stuff in our world. The sacred spiral. And it's tied to this 31, which is the fall of man. Tied to the grouse card, 34. And the grouse, if you read about the grouse, folks, you're going to see that it's tied to the sacred spiral, which is this right there. It does this dance. It really does this dance, which represents a spiral. And then, that led me to this element right here, Lawrencium, because the Royal Society of Chemistry uses this as its picture. And when you go to that, Lawrencium, right here, folks, here it is, you're going to see that the origin of the name, it's named after Ernest Lawrence because he was the inventor of what? The cyclotron. You go ahead and go read about the cyclotron, which is why they use this picture right there. And it's tied to the sacred spiral, which is tied to the fall of man. Tied to the grouse. You see how all of these pieces, when you follow the trails, they lead to telling us the truth, or what I believe to be the truth of how this world works. And so, then we get into the 31 a little bit more. And the 13, the fall of man, and, what it leads to with the moon. And, I'm going to digress. I'm going to show you again, because this graphic right here, the fall of man, I said that this bunny rabbit right there, this is the yin yang, this is the white rabbit. This would represent the moon. Which is interesting because Jesus is 18 and the moon card is 18. So they're all connected. There's no separation. So then you get into the 34 because it's tied to the 31, the fall of man, which is tied to pi. And 34 is selenium, which is derived from the Greek word that's the name for the moon, Selene. Tied to the 77. 77 is tied to iridium, and iridium is the Greek god Iris, the rainbow. The moon. And when you do the numerology of selenium, the element's name itself, it's a 32, which is tied to the Nephilim, the fallen angels, which is tied to the 10th sign in the zodiac called Capricorn, the sea goat, which is why the devil card is the goat. And I showed the devil card tied to phosphorus, which is Lucifer. Now, I'm going to digress and say, if you're a Capricorn, I'm not insinuating that you're the devil. I'm not saying that. But you need to use common sense and discernment on what it really means and the connections to that. Because the goat is definitely used in so many esoteric things to describe these fallen angels. You just got to look now. You just got to look. So I'm almost finished with this presentation, folks. And in the song, the title of the track is called Slip to the Void. The sacred spiral, the flash of creation, down to earth. And look at the outcomes of Slip to the Void, the title of the song. It's a 58 in Chaldean. That's tied to the element nickel, which is Lucifer's element. Lucifer's 28. Old Saint Nick, it's called Devil's Copper. And then it's 174 in the English, which is another one of Lucifer's elements. Lutetium, Lucifer, Lucy, tied to the colors of the rainbow. The light bringer. Light has the color spectrum in it, does it not? I mean, the word 58, I'm sorry, the number 58 is tied to the word puppet master, which is tied to Yaldabaoth, which would mean that Lucifer is tied directly to Yaldabaoth, using this example. And I'm going to leave it with this one. I think, this is my last slide, and I'm going to ask you what you saw. But notice that, and I've said this throughout this presentation, Miles Kennedy, who sang this song, he said, "You don't belong here. Slip to the void, you don't belong here." And that would mean you. That would mean me. Because we're here. Or does it just mean that it's these fallen angels that don't belong here? Because the story of the fallen angels was they saw the women and they found them appealing and they came down and they mated with the women, which is a bizarre story in itself. And maybe they didn't belong here. The fallen ones. And that's what this song's about. You don't belong here. And even that has 17 letters and 4 words, which is tied to Lucifer's one of Lucifer's elements. And this is a total of 76. And I've shown this. The word Nephilim is 76 in the original spelling in Hebrew. One of them. And that's tied to the Wizard of Oz element, osmium, which is tied to battery because battery's 19 and 91. You don't belong here. Who's you? Is he speaking about the fallen angels, which is what I believe to be our descendants, or we're descendants of the fallen angels, I should say. So folks, what did you see during this presentation? This was over an hour long. I'm looking at my time track now. And I thank you so very much for sticking with me on this one. I know I had a lot of information and I kind of jumped around a little bit, but folks, can you see how all this is connected? And the story now with this example clearly to me is showing that, the void is definitely down here in the earthly realms. And there's no question man's being used at what level, I don't know. But, are the Nephilim, the fallen angels, are we part of these angels again? And our redemption maybe is to not behave like they did. I don't know. Or are we part of this battery where we just get recycled back in and we're just part of the game and you ain't got no choice? Some of you think you have a choice, like, I'm going to get out of here. Well, okay, how are you going to prove that? It's very challenging, but I'd love to hear what you saw during this presentation. I really, really would. And that's all I got for today. That's all I got for today. I'm not going to go any further. This has been a long one, so that's all I got for today. My name is Logan. This is Decode Your Reality. I thank each and every one of you so very much for watching.